Let me ask you something. Where are you right now? Is it late? Are you lying in bed, phone propped up, hoping for sleep to finally come? Or maybe you're listening in the dark, headphones on, letting the world fade out around you. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I want you to get comfortable. Sink into the mattress, let your muscles go soft. Because what I'm about to tell you, well, it's the kind of story that settles into your bones and lingers long after the lights go out. Before we start, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and drop a comment. Where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? I want to know who's out there with me tonight. Now, close your eyes. Take a breath. Let the room grow quiet, because I'm about to take you somewhere you've never been, a place where silence is heavy and laughter is the last thing you want to hear. It started with a laugh, not a warm, friendly sound, but something sharp, high-pitched, slicing through the dead quiet of an empty mall at 11:47 p.m. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I stopped mid-step, the beam of my flashlight frozen on the cracked tile floor. That sound didn't belong here. Not in this abandoned wing, not in a place scheduled for demolition in just a few weeks. My name's Jim Martinez. For 8 years, I've worked night security at Riverside Mall. Usually, I patrol the busy East Wing, movie theater, chain restaurants, the places that still draw a crowd. But tonight, management needed someone to sweep the West Wing. Just one last check before construction crews started tearing it down. The West Wing's been closed for 3 years. Every store empty, metal shutters pulled tight, windows covered in thick black plastic. The air smells like dust and mold and old memories. My footsteps echo off bare walls where bright posters used to hang. The only light comes from the emergency exit signs, casting everything in a dim, bloody red. Then I heard it again, a woman's laugh, floating from inside Forever Young, an old clothing store about 30 feet ahead. My scalp prickled. The hair on my arms stood up. That laugh was too sharp, too alive for a place that's been dead this long. I've dealt with trespassers before. Teenagers sneaking in for TikTok videos. Homeless folks looking for a warm spot. But the West Wing's been sealed tight for months. Every entrance chained and padlocked. I checked them myself at the start of my shift. My flashlight swept across the storefront. The security gate was down, heavy steel links forming a wall. The display windows were blacked out with thick plastic, taped tight around the edges. No gaps, no way in. Another laugh, closer this time. My throat went dry, sweat beaded on my forehead, even though the air was cold. I took a step forward, then another. My boots squeaked on the tile. "Security," I called out, proud my voice didn't shake. "This is a restricted area. Come out with your hands where I can see them." The laughter stopped. Silence fell, so complete I could hear my own heartbeat, too fast and too loud. I moved closer, scanning for any sign of entry. The gate was solid, the plastic undisturbed, but the darkness behind the windows looked wrong, deeper, thicker than it should have been. A scraping sound came from inside, something heavy being dragged across the floor. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate. coming toward the front of the store. My hand went to the radio on my belt, but I hesitated. What would I say? That I heard laughing in a store that's supposed to be sealed. They'd laugh at me in the break room, call me jumpy. The footsteps stopped right on the other side of the gate. I raised my flashlight, peering through the tiny gaps in the metal links. "This is your final warning," I said, voice steady. "Identify yourself." A soft thud against the gate made me jump back. Then another and another, like someone tapping their fingers, one by one, against the steel. The laughter started again, not sharp this time, but low, bubbling up from somewhere deep and wrong. I backed away, fumbling for my radio. Static crackled as I keyed the mic. "Control, this is Martinez, in the West Wing. I have a possible..." I stopped. A possible what? The tapping continued, moving across the gate from left to right. Then a sound like nails dragging across metal, sending a chill down my spine. "Martinez, repeat your last," the radio squawked. "You're breaking up." The plastic behind the gate bulged outward, just a little, like something was pressing against it from inside. "I need backup in the West Wing," I said, voice barely above a whisper. More static, then nothing. The radio was dead. The bulge in the plastic grew. The tapping stopped. In its place came a wet, sliding sound. "Jim." The voice was barely a whisper, but I heard it. My name, from behind the gate. My legs went weak. How did it know my name? "I wear a name tag," my brain said, but that didn't help. Not when I watched the plastic stretch further, taking on an impossible shape. A face pressing through, features distorted, mouth stretched wide in a grin. The material grew thinner, almost see-through. I ran, boots pounding the tile, laughter echoing after me, bouncing off the empty walls. The emergency exit signs painted everything in red. I rounded a corner, slammed into a bench, pain shooting through my hip. My flashlight flew from my hand, spinning across the floor before going dark. Cursing, I pushed myself up. The laughter was closer now. Footsteps, running, too fast, coming up behind me. The exit door glowed at the end of the corridor. 50 feet. I could make it. Something cold brushed the back of my neck. Fingers, but wrong. Too long, too cold. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. The exit sign grew larger. 30 feet, 20, 10. I hit the crash bar with both hands, bursting out into the warm night air. I didn't stop running until I reached the security office, slamming the door behind me, collapsing into my chair. The overnight supervisor found me there 20 minutes later, still shaking. I told him I'd seen someone, chased them off. He just nodded, wrote it in the log, told me to finish my shift in the office. I quit the next morning, found a new job in a week, daytime security at a bank. Better hours, better pay. No abandoned wings to patrol. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I still hear it, that high, sharp laugh. And I wonder, if I'd stayed just a second longer, would I have seen what was really behind that plastic? Would I have learned why it knew my name? I don't sleep well on those nights, and I never work after sunset anymore. But that's just the beginning. You're still here, aren't you? Good. Because what happened to me in the West Wing was only the first ripple in a much deeper pool. And if you're listening this late, if you're still awake, maybe you're ready to hear the rest. Just keep the lights low and don't look over your shoulder. Not yet. After I left Riverside Mall, I tried to forget. I really did. New job, new routines, sunlight streaming through the bank's lobby windows every morning. I told myself it was just stress, just my mind playing tricks after too many years on the graveyard shift. But the memory wouldn't fade. That laugh, the way it echoed, the way it knew my name, it haunted me. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between customers, I'd catch myself glancing at the glass doors, half expecting to see that distorted face pressing through. A month went by. Then, too, I started sleeping better, started thinking maybe I'd put it behind me. But then, one rainy Thursday, I got a call from an old friend, Sam, a fellow night guard who still worked the mall circuit. His voice was shaky, quieter than I remembered. "Jim, you got a minute?" he asked. "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual. "What's up?" He hesitated. "You ever hear anything weird when you worked the West Wing?" My heart skipped. I almost hung up right there, but something in his voice, fear, real fear, kept me on the line. "Yeah," I said, barely above a whisper. "I did. Why?" Sam let out a shaky breath. "Last night, I was covering for a guy. Same wing, same store. I heard laughing, Jim, and I saw something behind the plastic. I thought I was losing it." He paused, and I could hear the rain tapping against his window. "It said my name, Jim. It knew my name." A cold shiver ran through me. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles white. "Did you tell anyone?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Who would believe me? They'd say I was seeing things, but I can't shake it. I haven't slept since. I closed my eyes, picturing the dark corridors, the red-lit exit signs, the way the plastic bulged outward, impossibly thin. "Sam, listen to me. Don't go back there. If they ask you to cover another shift in the West Wing, say no. Quit if you have to." There was a long pause. "You think it's real? Not just in our heads?" I wanted to tell him it was all in the past, that we were just tired, overworked, but I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen, not after what I'd heard. "I don't know," I said finally, "but I don't want to find out." We hung up. I sat there, staring at the rain streaking down the window, heart pounding in my chest. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Every time the phone rang, every time the automatic doors slid open, I jumped. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind rattle the branches outside. I tried to convince myself it was all a coincidence, that Sam and I were just two tired men, haunted by the same empty building. But then the dream started. I'd find myself back in the mall, flashlight in hand, walking those dark corridors. The laughter would start, soft at first, then louder, echoing off the walls. I'd run, but the exit would always be just out of reach. The plastic would stretch, faces pressing through, mouths open in silent screams. And always, it would whisper my name. I'd wake up gasping, sheets twisted around me, sweat cold on my skin. Sometimes, I'd find myself standing at the window, staring out into the night, searching for something I couldn't name. Weeks passed. The dreams grew more frequent, more vivid. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. My coworkers noticed, but I brushed them off. Just a bug, I'd say. Didn't sleep well. One morning, after another sleepless night, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address, just my name, Jim Martinez, typed in bold block letters. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, black and white. It showed the West Wing corridor, the emergency exit sign glowing red at the end. But in the foreground, pressed against the window of Forever Young, was a face. Distorted, mouth stretched impossibly wide, eyes black and empty. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "It's not done with us." My hands trembled. I dropped the photo, heart racing. Who sent this? Sam? Someone else who'd seen it? Or something else? I tried calling Sam, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I left message after message, voice growing more frantic each time. "Sam, call me back. Please, I got something. I think it's following us." Days passed, no word from Sam, no more envelopes, but the dreams only got worse. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, shadows that moved when they shouldn't, flashes of white teeth in the darkness. I stopped going out at night, stopped answering the phone. My world shrank to the four walls of my apartment, curtains drawn tight, every light on. But I couldn't hide forever. One night, just after midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Jim?" The voice was thin, distant. "Sam? Sam, where have you been? I've been trying to..." He cut me off. "It's here, Jim. I can hear it laughing. It's outside my window." I froze, blood turning to ice. "Sam, listen to me. Don't open the door. Don't let it in." He laughed, a broken, desperate sound. Too late. It already knows my name. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, heart pounding so loud I thought it would burst. I tried calling back, but no answer. I called again, and again. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face, pressed against the plastic, mouth open in a silent scream, and somewhere, just out of sight, I could hear it laughing. "Are you still with me? Still listening, even as the night grows deeper and the shadows in your room seem to stretch just a little longer? If you're feeling uneasy, that's okay. That's the right feeling, because this story isn't finished, not by a long shot." After that last call from Sam, everything changed. The world outside my apartment felt hostile, like every shadow was watching, every gust of wind was whispering my name. I tried to go about my days as usual, but it was like walking through a dream where nothing made sense. Food lost its taste. The sun seemed weaker, barely pushing through the clouds. I kept thinking about the photograph, the face pressed against the window, the way the emergency exit sign glowed like a warning. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, some sick joke. But deep down, I knew this thing, whatever it was real, and it was getting closer. A few days after Sam's call, I got a visit from the police. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both with tired eyes and polite smiles that didn't reach their faces. They asked if I'd heard from Sam recently. I lied, said we hadn't spoken in months. They nodded, took notes, thanked me for my time. But as they turned to leave, the woman paused. She looked at me, really looked, like she could see the fear crawling under my skin. If you remember anything, she said quietly, call us, even if it seems strange. I nodded, closed the door, and locked it tight. That night, I sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the pipes. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow sharper. I kept the photograph on the table, face down. I couldn't bear to look at it, but I couldn't throw it away either. Sleep came in short, jagged bursts. I'd drift off, then jerk awake, heart pounding, sure I'd heard laughter just outside my window. Once, I thought I saw a shape moving behind the curtains, but when I pulled them back, there was nothing there. Just the empty street, slick with rain. Days blurred together. I stopped going to work. I stopped answering calls. My world shrank to the size of my apartment, the walls closing in, tighter and tighter. Then one night, I heard it again, not in my dreams this time, but in the real world. A laugh, high, sharp, echoing through the hallway outside my door. I froze, every muscle in my body tensed. The laugh came again, closer now, just on the other side of the door. I pressed my back against the wall, barely breathing. Jim. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was something wrong about it, something that made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my heart hammering in my chest. The doorknob rattled, slowly at first, then harder. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. The operator answered, but I barely heard her. All I could focus on was the voice, still calling my name, still laughing. Please, I whispered. Someone's trying to get in. The operator asked for my address. I gave it, voice trembling. She told me to stay on the line, that help was on the way. But the laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, filling the apartment, bouncing off the walls. I pressed my hands over my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, tried to block it out. Then, suddenly, it was gone. Silence crashed down, heavy and absolute. I waited, barely daring to breathe. Minutes passed. Then I heard the distant wail of sirens, the pounding of footsteps in the hallway. The police burst in, guns drawn, eyes wide, but there was nothing there, no sign of anyone, just me, shaking in the corner, clutching my phone like a lifeline. They searched the building top to bottom. No one else, no signs of forced entry. They looked at me like I was crazy, but the woman officer, the one who'd visited before, put a gentle hand on my shoulder. You're not alone, she whispered. We've had other calls, other people, hearing things, seeing things. I stared at her, hope flickering in my chest. What is it? I asked. What's happening? She shook her head. I don't know, but you're not the only one. They left me with a card, told me to call if anything else happened. I locked the door behind them, slid the deadbolt into place, and sat in the dark, listening to the silence. That night, I dreamed of the mall again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Sam was there, standing in the corridor, eyes wide and empty. The laughter echoed all around us, growing louder and louder until it was all I could hear. I woke up screaming, the sound still ringing in my ears. From that night on, the boundaries between dream and reality began to blur. I'd see things, shapes moving in the corners of my vision, reflections that didn't match my movements. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate, always just out of sight. I tried to fight it. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, but the fear was real. The fear was always real, and somewhere, just beyond the reach of the light, I knew it was waiting, watching, laughing. If you're still listening, if you're still awake, I want you to remember this. You're not alone. Whatever's out there, whatever's hiding in the darkness, it knows our names. It waits for the moment when we're most vulnerable, when sleep is just out of reach, when the world is quiet and the shadows grow long. So, if you hear laughter in the night, don't answer, don't look, and whatever you do, don't let it in. But this story isn't over yet, not by a long shot. If you're still here, still listening, I want you to take a breath. Let it out slow. Maybe you're curled up in bed, the glow of your screen the only light in the room. Maybe you're starting to wonder if that creak in the hallway is just the house settling, or something else, something listening, just like you. I wish I could tell you things got better after that night. But the truth is, the line between waking and dreaming kept getting thinner. I'd catch myself drifting off at my kitchen table, only to snap awake with the echo of laughter ringing in my ears. Sometimes, I'd find myself standing at the window, staring out into the dark, searching for movement in the empty street. The city felt different, too, like something had shifted beneath the surface. People walked a little faster, kept their heads down. The news was full of strange stories, missing persons, unexplained break-ins, neighbors hearing voices in the night. I started to wonder if the thing in the West Wing was spreading, reaching out through the cracks in our lives, looking for new names to whisper. One afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just a single line. Meet me at 10, Riverside Mall, East Entrance. Come alone. No name, no explanation. For a long time, I stared at the message, heart thudding. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore it, to stay far away from that place. But curiosity, fear's twisted cousin, got the better of me. At 9:45, I parked across the street from the mall. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in bruised shades of purple and red. The east entrance looked just like I remembered. Glass doors streaked with grime, the old neon sign buzzing weakly overhead. I waited, watching as the shadows grew longer, swallowing the parking lot 1 inch at a time. At exactly 10 o'clock, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar. A woman, tall and thin, hair pulled back in a tight braid. She wore a faded security jacket, the Riverside Mall logo barely visible on the sleeve. I recognized her instantly, the officer from before, the one who told me I wasn't alone. She nodded at me, eyes wary. Thanks for coming, Jim. I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. You said there were others, people who'd seen it. She nodded again, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone or something to be watching. We don't have much time. Walk with me. We moved quickly. Slipping through the side door, she unlocked with a worn keycard. Inside, the mall was a tomb, silent, empty, the air thick with dust and memories. Our footsteps echoed down the corridor, each one a reminder of how alone we were. She spoke in a low voice, barely above a whisper. There have been incidents, not just here, other malls, old schools, places people have forgotten. People hear laughter, see faces in the dark. Some disappear, some change. I shivered, remembering Sam's voice, thin and desperate on the phone. What does it want? She shook her head. No one knows, but it always starts the same way. A laugh, a name, and then it follows you everywhere you go. We stopped outside Forever Young. The security gate was still down, the plastic still stretched tight across the windows. But something was different. The air felt colder, heavier. The darkness behind the plastic seemed to pulse as if it were alive. She handed me a small recorder. If anything happens, if you hear it again, record everything, even if you're scared, especially if you're scared. I nodded, fingers trembling as I took the device. Why me? Why Sam? Why any of us? She looked at me, her eyes tired and sad. It finds people who are alone, people who listen, people who can't let go. We stood there in silence, the only sound our breathing and the faint hum of the emergency lights. Suddenly, from deep inside the store, a laugh echoed out. Not sharp this time, but slow, drawn out, like someone savoring a secret. The plastic bulged, just for a moment, as if something pressed against it from the inside. The officer grabbed my arm, pulling me back. We need to go, now. We hurried down the corridor, the laughter following us, growing softer but never fading completely. At the exit, she turned to me, eyes wide with fear. Don't come back here, she said, and don't be alone, not at night. I nodded, stepping out into the cool night air. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing through the empty parking lot. Driving home, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that twisted face staring back at me. Every streetlight seemed to flicker as I passed. Every shadow felt too deep, too dark. That night, I set the recorder on my nightstand, thumb hovering over the button. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the laughter to start. Hours passed. The city outside grew quiet. My eyelids grew heavy. Just as I started to drift off, I heard it, a soft, breathy laugh, right beside my ear. I hit record, voice shaking. It's here. I can hear it. God, it's so close. The laughter grew louder, filling the room, bouncing off the walls. I pressed myself against the headboard, clutching the recorder like a lifeline. Please, I whispered, leave me alone. For a moment, the laughter stopped. Silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Then, in a voice that was almost my own, it whispered, Jim. I dropped the recorder, heart pounding, breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The next morning, when I played back the tape, all I heard was static. But underneath it, so faint I almost missed it, was the sound of laughter, and my name, whispered over and over, like a promise. If you're still awake, still listening, I want you to know this is the part where the story starts to seep into your dreams, where the darkness in your room feels a little heavier, where every small sound makes your heart skip. But you're not alone. I'm right here with you, and together we'll keep going. After that night, the recorder became my only companion. I carried it everywhere, tucked in my jacket pocket at work, clutched in my hand as I lay in bed, even set beside me while I showered. It was my proof, my shield against the thing that haunted me. I played the tape over and over, searching for meaning in the static, in the faint echoes of laughter and my name. Sometimes I thought I heard other voices too, whispers layered beneath my own, like a chorus of lost souls trying to warn me. Days blurred into nights. I barely slept, barely ate. My friends stopped calling. My family left worried messages I couldn't bring myself to answer. The world outside my apartment felt distant, unreal. Only the recorder and the fear were real. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city lights flickered on, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the recorder. My hands shook as I pressed play again, listening to the static, the laughter, the whisper of my name. Then, suddenly, a new voice cut through, clear, desperate, unmistakable. "Jim, help me." Sam. I froze, breath caught in my throat. I rewound the tape, played it again, the same plea buried beneath the noise. "Jim, help me." It couldn't be. Sam was gone. The police had found nothing. No sign of him, no trace, but his voice was there, reaching out from the darkness, begging for help. I knew what I had to do. That night, I drove back to Riverside Mall. The parking lot was empty, the neon sign flickering weakly in the gloom. I sat in my car for a long time, recorder clutched in my hand, heart pounding in my chest. Finally, I forced myself out, locking the doors behind me. The mall loomed ahead, a hulking shadow against the night sky. I slipped through the side entrance, the same one the officer had used, the key card she'd given me cold and heavy in my pocket. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. My footsteps echoed down the empty corridors, each one a drumbeat of dread. I passed shuttered stores, darkened food courts, the memories of laughter and life, now nothing but ghosts. I made my way to the West Wing, the place where it all began. The security gate was still down, the plastic still stretched tight across the windows. But tonight, something was different. The air felt charged, electric, as if the mall itself was holding its breath. I pressed the recorder to my lips, voice shaking. "Sam, if you're here, I'm coming." The laughter started, soft and distant, growing louder as I approached. The plastic bulged, faces pressing through, mouths open in silent screams. I forced myself forward, every step a battle against the urge to run. "Jim." The voice was everywhere, inside my head, echoing off the walls, vibrating through the floor. I reached the gate, pressed my hand against the cold metal. "Sam, I'm here." For a moment, the laughter stopped. The faces in the plastic stilled, eyes wide and pleading. Then, With a sound like tearing fabric, the plastic split open, revealing a darkness deeper than night. A hand reached out, thin, pale, fingers too long, nails black and broken. I staggered back, heart hammering, but the hand didn't grab me. Instead, it pressed something into my palm, a scrap of paper, damp and cold. Then the laughter returned, louder than ever, filling the corridor, shaking the walls. The hand withdrew, the plastic sealing itself shut, the faces melting back into the darkness. I stumbled away, clutching the paper, barely able to breathe. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car, doors locked, engine roaring to life. Only then did I look at the paper. On it, in Sam's handwriting, were 3 words: "Don't let go." I stared at the message, mind racing. What did it mean? Was Sam trapped in there, somewhere behind the plastic, lost in the darkness? Or was it a warning for me, for anyone who listened, for anyone who couldn't let go of the fear? I drove home in a daze, the recorder still clutched in my hand, the paper burning in my pocket. That night, I sat in the dark, listening to the tape, reading the message over and over. Don't let go. But of what? Hope? Fear? My own sanity? The laughter echoed in my mind, relentless, unending. And somewhere, in the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw Sam's face, pleading, desperate, reaching out for help. I knew then that this wasn't just my story. It was his, too. And maybe yours, if you're listening close enough. So if you hear laughter in the night, if you feel a cold hand brush your skin, remember Sam's words. Don't let go. Not yet. Are you still with me? If you are, I want you to notice how your breathing slows, how the room seems quieter than before. The story is winding deeper now, into places where fear and memory tangle, where the line between what's real and what's imagined blurs until you can't tell the difference. If you feel a chill, it's not just the night air, it's the story itself reaching out. After that night at the mall, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sam's face, pale and desperate, behind that plastic veil. The words he'd left me, "Don't let go," echoed through my mind, looping endlessly, a warning and a plea. I started carrying the scrap of paper everywhere, folded and refolded until the edges wore thin. I'd rub it between my fingers like a talisman, hoping it would keep the laughter at bay. But the laughter always found a way in. The next few days passed in a fog. I went through the motions at work, nodded along to conversations I couldn't follow, flinched at every unexpected sound. I kept the recorder close, listening for Sam's voice, for any new message hidden in the static. I played the tape so many times I could recite every whisper, every laugh, every distorted plea by heart. But then, one night, something changed. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the city outside my window washed in orange streetlight. The recorder sat in front of me, the scrap of paper beside it. I pressed play, expecting the usual chorus of static and laughter, but this time there was something new, a voice, clearer than before, urgent, almost panicked. "Jim, please, you have to help me. It's getting stronger. I can't hold on much longer." My heart stuttered, breath caught in my throat. I rewound the tape, played it again. The same message, just beneath the laughter. "Jim, please, help me." I grabbed a notebook, scribbled down the words, trying to make sense of them. Was Sam really reaching out from wherever he was? Or was it just my mind, twisting the sounds into what I wanted, needed, to hear? I didn't know, but I couldn't ignore it. That night, I made a decision. I would go back to the mall one last time. Not to run, not to hide, but to face whatever waited behind that plastic. To try to find Sam, or at least to understand what had happened to him. I packed a bag, flashlight, extra batteries, my phone, the recorder, the scrap of paper. I wrote a note and left it on my kitchen table, just in case I didn't come back. If you're reading this, I went to Riverside Mall. If I don't return, don't come looking for me. Burn this note. Forget my name. I left my apartment just after midnight. The city was silent, the air heavy with anticipation. I parked in the same spot as before, heart pounding as I stepped out into the darkness. The mall loomed ahead, a black silhouette against the sky. I let myself in through the side door, the keycard trembling in my hand. Inside, the air was colder than I remembered. My breath hung in the air, swirling in the beam of my flashlight. I moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, every sense straining for the sound of laughter. The West Wing was waiting, the security gate, the plastic, the darkness behind the glass. I stood there, staring at my own reflection, watching as it rippled and twisted in the dim light. I pressed the recorder to my lips, voice barely a whisper. "Sam, I'm here. Tell me what to do." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the laughter started, soft, almost gentle, like a lullaby. The plastic bulged, faces pressing through, mouths open in silent screams. I forced myself to step closer, heart hammering in my chest. "Sam, can you hear me?" The laughter grew louder, filling the corridor, vibrating through the floor. The faces in the plastic twisted, eyes wide and pleading. Then, suddenly, the plastic tore open, just a crack, just enough for a hand to reach through. Thin, pale, trembling, I grabbed it without thinking, fingers closing around cold, clammy skin. The world tilted, the laughter swelling until it was all I could hear. "Don't let go," Sam's voice whispered, echoing inside my head. I held on, even as the darkness pulled at me, even as the faces in the plastic screamed in silence. I held on, knuckles white, breath coming in ragged gasps. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the hand slipped from my grasp. The plastic sealed itself shut, the laughter cutting off like a switch. I staggered back, falling to my knees, gasping for air. My hand was empty, but something cold lingered in my palm, a sensation that wouldn't fade. I fumbled for the recorder, pressed play, static, then Sam's voice, faint but unmistakable. "Thank you, Jim. Don't let go." The tape ended. The corridor was silent. I stumbled out of the mall into the night, the laughter echoing in my mind. I don't know if I saved Sam. I don't know if I doomed myself. But I know this. The thing in the West Wing isn't finished. It's still out there, waiting for someone to listen, someone to answer when it calls their name. So if you hear laughter in the dark, if you feel a cold hand brush your skin, remember, don't let go. Not yet. You're still here. That means you're brave, or maybe just curious. Maybe you're lying in the dark, earbuds in, feeling the weight of each word settle over you like a blanket. Maybe you're listening because you want to believe it's just a story, that nothing can reach you through a screen. But stories have a way of lingering, don't they? They slip into the quiet places of your mind, and sometimes, if you listen closely, you can almost hear them breathing. After that night, I didn't go back to the mall, not for days, not for weeks. I tried to live like before, but everything felt thinner, like the world was a sheet of paper and something sharp was pressing against the other side, ready to tear through at any moment. I kept the recorder with me, always. I played it in the morning, at lunch, before bed, searching for new messages, new clues. Sometimes I heard Sam's voice, soft and distant, like he was calling from the bottom of a well. Sometimes I heard nothing but static, but always, underneath it all, was the laughter. Sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh, but always there, always waiting. I started seeing things too. In the reflection of a bus window, I'd catch a glimpse of a face I didn't recognize, pale, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. In the corner of my bedroom, shadows would twist and writhe, forming shapes that vanished when I turned on the light. I told myself it was just stress, just my mind playing tricks. But deep down, I knew the truth. One night, I woke to the sound of my name, whispered, urgent, right beside my ear. I sat up, heart pounding, sweat cold on my skin. The room was empty, but the whisper lingered, curling around me like smoke. I pressed play on the recorder, hands shaking, static. Then, faintly, Sam's voice. "You're next, Jim. It's coming." I dropped the recorder, breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere left to go. The thing from the West Wing had found me. It was only a matter of time. The next day I got a call from the officer, the one who'd met me at the mall. Her voice was tight, words clipped. "Jim, I need you to come in, now. It's important." I didn't ask questions. I just got in my car and drove. The police station was a blur of fluorescent lights and tired faces. She met me in a small, windowless room, her expression grim. "There's been another incident," she said. "Another guard. Same mall, same wing. He's missing." I stared at her, mouth dry. "Did he hear it too?" She nodded. "He left a note. Said he heard laughter. Said it knew his name." She slid a file across the table. Photos, reports, scribbled notes. I flipped through them, each page heavier than the last. Faces pressed against plastic. Recordings of laughter. Names whispered in the dark. "It's not just you, Jim," she said quietly. "It's not just Sam. There are more, all over the city, maybe further." I looked up, fear coiling in my gut. "What does it want?" She shook her head. "We don't know, but it's getting stronger. More people are hearing it. More are disappearing." We sat in silence, the weight of her words pressing down like a stone. Finally, she leaned in, voice barely a whisper. "You're the only one who's come back. The only one who's..." touched it. We need your help. I wanted to say no. I wanted to walk out, lock my door, and never look back. But Sam's voice echoed in my mind. Don't let go. And I knew I couldn't leave it behind. Not now. What do you want me to do? I asked. She slid a small black device across the table. This is a new kind of recorder. Picks up frequencies we can't hear. Take it back to the mall. Try to get close to the plastic. See what you find. I stared at the device, fear and curiosity warring inside me. And if it finds me? Her eyes were sad. Don't let go, Jim. Whatever happens, don't let go. I left the station with the new recorder, the weight of the city pressing down on my shoulders. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the device, listening to the city breathe outside my window. I thought about Sam, about the other guards, about all the names whispered in the dark. I knew what I had to do. I waited until midnight, then drove to the mall. The parking lot was empty, the neon sign flickering weakly in the darkness. I let myself in, footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. The West Wing was colder than ever. The plastic stretched tight across the windows, faces flickering in the shadows. I pressed record, voice trembling. I'm here. I'm listening. The laughter started, soft and low, vibrating through the floor. The plastic bulged, a hand pressing through, fingers reaching for me. I held out the recorder, heart pounding, breath coming in short, shallow bursts. Sam, I whispered, if you're there, I'm not letting go. The hand brushed mine, cold and clammy. The laughter swelled, filling the corridor, shaking the walls. And then, just for a moment, everything went silent. A voice, clear, strong, familiar. Thank you, Jim. The hand slipped away. The plastic sealed itself shut. The laughter faded into the distance. I stood there, alone in the dark, recorder still running, heart finally slowing. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know if I saved Sam or if I just set something free. But I do know this. If you hear laughter in the night, if you feel a cold hand brush your skin, don't let go. Not yet. You're still listening. That means you're searching for answers, just like I was. Maybe you're hoping the story will end, that the fear will fade when the video stops. But some stories don't end. They echo. They haunt. They wait for someone else to listen. After that last night in the West Wing, I tried to return to my old life. I really did. I went to work. I answered my family's calls, told them I was fine. I even tried to laugh at myself in the mirror, to pretend the shadows in the corners of my room weren't watching. But the laughter never left me. It lingered in the quiet moments, in the hush before sleep, in the static between radio stations. Sometimes, I'd catch my own reflection smiling when I wasn't. The new recorder, the one the officer gave me, sat untouched on my nightstand for days. I was afraid to listen, afraid of what I might hear. But curiosity is a powerful thing, isn't it? It gnaws at you, keeps you awake, whispers that maybe, just maybe, you'll find something that makes sense of it all. One night, when the city was silent and the wind rattled the windows, I picked up the recorder and pressed play. At first, nothing but static. Then, a low hum, like 1,000 voices whispering at the edge of hearing. I turned up the volume, heart thudding in my chest. Jim. My name, clear as day, spoken in a dozen different voices. Some I recognized. Sam, the officer, even my own. Others were strangers, but all of them sounded afraid. It's not over, the voices whispered. It's never over. The hum grew louder, rising and falling like a tide. Beneath it, I heard laughter, soft, distant, but unmistakable. It wasn't just in the mall anymore. It was everywhere. I stopped the tape, hands shaking. I wanted to throw the recorder away, to smash it, to run. But something held me in place. A sense that if I let go now, the laughter would follow me forever. I started to notice things. People on the street glancing over their shoulders, shivering in the sunlight. News stories about disappearances, about strange sounds in the night. A friend called me, voice trembling, to say she'd heard someone laughing outside her apartment at 3 a.m., a laugh that sounded just like her own. I tried to warn her, tried to tell her not to listen, not to answer, but it was too late. The next day, she was gone. No note, no trace, just a voicemail on my phone, her voice whispering, "Don't let go." The officer called me again, her voice raw with exhaustion. "It's spreading, Jim. Whatever it is, it's not just in the mall anymore. It's moving, finding new places, new people." I asked her what we could do, how we could fight it. She was silent for a long time. Then, quietly, she said, "We document, we warn, we hope someone listens." That's why I started recording these stories. Why I'm telling you all of this now. Because if you're listening, if you're awake in the dark with the weight of this story pressing on your chest, you need to know you're not alone and you're not powerless. There are things you can do. First, never answer when you hear your name in the night. Not if it comes with laughter, not if it sounds like someone you love. The thing in the dark knows how to mimic, how to twist your memories until you can't tell what's real. Second, keep a light on. Shadows are its playground. It likes the quiet, the places where fear grows thickest. Third, talk to someone. Don't let the fear isolate you. It feeds on loneliness, on secrets whispered in the dark. And last, if you ever find yourself standing in front of a plastic-covered window, if you see faces pressing through, if you hear laughter echoing from behind the glass, don't let go. Hold on to yourself, to your name, to the things that make you real, because that's what it wants. It wants to take your name, your laughter, your face, and add it to the chorus behind the plastic. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear Sam's voice. Sometimes I hear my own, calling from somewhere I can't see. I don't know if I'll ever be free of the laughter, if any of us will, but I do know this. As long as I keep telling this story, as long as someone listens, we're not alone in the dark. So if you're still awake, still listening, remember, fear is just a story we tell ourselves, and sometimes telling the story is the only way to keep the darkness at bay. But the story isn't over, not yet. If you're still here, let yourself breathe. Let your eyes wander the room. Notice the way the shadows shift, how the silence seems to pulse between my words. Maybe you're fighting sleep, or maybe you're hoping the story will lull you there, even as it stirs something deeper, something ancient inside you. After I started recording these stories, I noticed a change, not just in myself, but in the world around me. It was subtle at first. Strangers on the street would glance at me, eyes lingering a moment too long. Sometimes I'd hear laughter in the distance, echoing through alleyways and empty stairwells. Sometimes I'd see a flash of movement in a window, a face I almost recognized, gone before I could focus. The officer and I kept in touch, trading stories, warnings, and fears. She was collecting evidence, building a case, trying to convince her superiors that something unnatural was happening. But every time she got close, something slipped away. Files lost, witnesses vanished, audio tapes erased. It was as if the thing in the dark was always one step ahead, erasing its tracks, tightening its grip. One night, she called me, her voice a whisper. "Jim, I think it's learning. I think it's listening to us, the way we listen to it. Every time we talk about it, every time we record, it gets a little stronger." I sat in my apartment, lights blazing, every shadow banished. So what do we do? Stop talking? Stop warning people? She hesitated. No, that's what it wants. It wants us silent, alone, afraid. We have to keep telling the story. We have to keep each other awake. It made sense in a way. The laughter grew loudest when I was alone, when I tried to forget. But when I spoke, when I shared the fear, it faded, just a little, just enough to breathe. So I kept recording. I started a journal, writing down every dream, every whisper, every time I saw a face in the dark. I posted online, anonymously at first, then under my own name. People started reaching out, strangers from all over the world, sharing their own stories, their own encounters with laughter in the night. Some described old buildings, abandoned schools, shuttered hospitals, places where the air felt heavy, where laughter echoed long after the last visitor left. Others spoke of dreams that bled into waking life, of voices calling their names from behind locked doors. A few sent recordings, static-laced audio files, filled with laughter and whispers, names spoken in voices that didn't belong. The more stories I heard, the more I realized how big this thing really was. It wasn't just Riverside Mall. It wasn't just my city. It was everywhere, anywhere loneliness and fear could take root. One message stood out, a woman from across the country who worked night shifts at a hospital slated for demolition. She wrote, "I heard laughter in the old wing, thought it was just my imagination, until I saw faces in the glass of the medicine cabinet. They were all smiling. Some looked like people I knew, some looked like me." She ended her message with a question that haunted me. "If it takes my face below, will anyone know I was ever here?" I wrote back, told her what I'd learned about the laughter, about holding on, about not letting go. She thanked me, said she'd try to stay strong. I never heard from her again. The officer and I met one last time in a coffee shop crowded with people, every table filled, every light burning bright. She looked tired, older than before, but her eyes were determined. "It's spreading, Jim," she said, "but so is the story. Every time someone listens, every time someone refuses to be alone, it loses a little power. She slid a small envelope across the table. If anything happens to me, use this. It's everything I've found. Names, places, recordings. Keep it safe. Keep telling the story. I nodded, tucking the envelope into my jacket. We sat in silence for a while, letting the noise of the cafe wash over us, a shield against the darkness outside. That night, I dreamed of the mall again. But this time, I wasn't alone. The corridor was filled with people, faces I recognized from the stories, voices I'd heard in the static. We walked together, laughter echoing around us, but it was different now, softer, less threatening. I woke up with tears on my cheeks, a strange sense of hope blooming in my chest. Maybe that's how we fight it, not with fear, but with connection, with stories, with the knowledge that we're not alone, no matter how loud the laughter gets. So if you're listening, if you're awake in the dark, remember, your story matters, your voice matters. Every time you share your fear, every time you reach out, you push back the darkness, just a little, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough. But the story isn't finished, not yet. You're still with me. That means something. Maybe you're holding your phone a little tighter now, or maybe you've turned the volume down, listening for any sound that doesn't belong. Maybe you're just hoping for a resolution, a way out of the darkness. I want you to know you're not alone, not in this story, not in the night. After that last meeting with the officer, I carried her envelope everywhere. It felt heavier than it should have, as if the paper inside was weighted with all the fear and hope of everyone who'd ever heard the laughter. I didn't open it right away. I was afraid of what I'd find, afraid that reading the names would be like inviting the darkness in. But one night, when the wind was howling and the city felt emptier than usual, I sat at my kitchen table, turned on every light, and broke the seal. Inside were pages and pages of notes, handwritten accounts, police reports, transcriptions of interviews. There were photos, too, grainy, black and white images of faces pressed against glass, mouths open in silent screams. Some of the faces I recognized, most I didn't. There were audio files, copied onto a battered old USB stick. I plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding, and listened. Static at first, then laughter, then voices, dozens of them, layered on top of each other, calling out names, whispering secrets, begging for help. One recording stood out. It was Sam's voice, clear and desperate, echoing through the static. If you're hearing this, it means you're next. Don't listen to the laughter. Don't answer when it calls your name. And whatever you do, don't let go. I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. I thought about all the people who'd vanished, all the stories left unfinished. I wondered how many more there would be, how many more names would be added to the list. That night, I sat on my bed, the envelope spread out around me, the recorder in my hand. I pressed record and spoke into the darkness. My name is Jim Martinez. I've seen the faces behind the plastic. I've heard the laughter in the night. If you're listening to this, you're not alone. There are others like us, people who've heard, people who've survived. Hold on to your name. Hold on to your story. Don't let go. I uploaded the recording, sent it to every contact I had, posted it on every forum, every social media page, every place where people gather in the night, searching for answers. The responses poured in, stories from all over the world, voices raised in fear and hope and defiance. Some were angry, some were grateful, some were just scared, but all of them were listening. Days turned into weeks. The laughter didn't stop, but it changed. It grew softer, less certain. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I could almost hear something else beneath it. A different kind of laughter, softer, warmer, the sound of people telling stories, of friends gathered around a table, of hope refusing to die. The officer called me one last time. Her voice was tired, but there was a smile in it. It's working, Jim. People are listening. People are fighting back. Maybe we can't stop it. Maybe we can't save everyone, but we can remind each other that we're not alone. I thanked her, told her to stay safe, promised to keep telling the story. That night, I dreamed of the mall again, but this time, the corridors were filled with light. The faces behind the plastic were gone. The laughter was still there, but it was distant, fading, powerless. I woke up with hope in my chest and tears on my cheeks. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, I want you to remember, fear feeds on silence. But stories are stronger. Stories bind us together, keep us awake, keep us safe. So keep listening, keep telling your story, keep the lights on. And if you ever hear laughter in the night, if you ever feel a cold hand brush your skin, remember, you're not alone, not ever, but the story isn't over, not yet. You're still here, still listening, still awake, or maybe drifting somewhere between sleep and story. If your eyes are heavy, let them close for a moment. It's okay. The story will keep you company, even in the dark. After I sent my message out into the world, the days took on a strange new rhythm. I woke each morning to messages from strangers, some sharing their own encounters, some asking for help, some just needing to know they weren't the only ones who'd heard the laughter. I answered every one I could, even if all I could offer was a few words. You're not alone. Hold on. Some nights, the laughter was quieter, as if it was listening too, wary of all these voices rising up together. Other nights, it grew wild, desperate, as if trying to drown us out. But I noticed something. The more we talked, the more we reached out, the easier it was to push the fear back, even if just for a little while. The officer kept sending me updates. She'd become a kind of unofficial hub for people like us, people who'd seen, who'd heard, who'd survived. She told me about a janitor in an old high school who'd started leaving his phone recording every night, just in case. About a nurse who played recordings of her children's laughter in the empty halls of a hospital, driving the darkness away. About a group of teenagers who gathered in abandoned buildings, telling ghost stories by flashlight, refusing to let the silence win. It wasn't a cure, but it was something. One evening, as I sat by my window watching the city lights flicker, I got a message that made my heart stop. It was from Sam's sister. She'd found my recordings online, recognized his voice in one of them. She wrote, "I always wondered what happened to him. He was never the same after he started working nights. He'd wake up screaming, Say something was laughing at him, calling his name. Then one day he just disappeared. Thank you for telling his story. Thank you for not letting him be forgotten. I wrote back, tears blurring my vision, promising to keep his memory alive, promising to keep telling the story. That night, I sat with the envelope of names, the recorder in my hand, and I spoke into the darkness again. This is for Sam, for everyone who's ever heard the laughter, for everyone who's ever felt alone in the night. We remember you. We speak your names. We hold on together. I pressed stop, feeling a weight lift from my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe, but the story wasn't finished. There was still more to say, because the laughter, though weaker, was still there. Some nights, it crept in around the edges of sleep, curling into my dreams. Sometimes, I'd wake with the feeling of cold fingers brushing my cheek, a whisper of my name fading into the dawn. I learned to live with it, to let it remind me that I wasn't powerless, that fear didn't have to win. I learned that every story told, every name remembered, was a small act of defiance. And I learned that the thing in the darkness, the thing behind the laughter, wasn't just a monster. It was a mirror, reflecting our deepest fears, our loneliness, our longing to be seen and heard and remembered. So I kept telling the story, kept listening, kept holding on. And if you're still listening, if you're still awake, I want you to know you're part of this story now. Your voice matters, your fear matters, your hope matters. So don't let go, not yet, because even as the story winds on, even as the laughter fades and returns, there's still more to tell. And you're not alone, not in the darkness, not in the silence, not ever. You're still with me. Maybe your eyes are closed now, letting the words drift over you like a tide. Maybe you're awake, heart beating a little faster, listening for any sound that doesn't belong. Wherever you are, whatever you're feeling, know that you're not alone in this moment. The story is still unfolding, and you're part of it. As the weeks passed, the world seemed to settle into a new kind of uneasy peace. The laughter was still there, but it had changed. It was less certain, more hesitant, as if it knew we were watching, listening, refusing to be silent. I found myself growing braver, walking the city at night, daring the shadows to move. Sometimes, I'd pause in front of darkened windows, searching for faces behind the glass. Sometimes, I'd hear a whisper of my name, but I didn't answer. I just smiled and kept walking. The messages kept coming. Some were hopeful, others desperate. A few were angry. People who wanted the story to end, who wanted the fear to stop. I understood. I wanted that too. But I also knew that ending the story meant letting the darkness win, letting the laughter grow loud again. One night, I got a message from a man in another city. He worked the night shift at an old hotel, the kind with peeling wallpaper and endless echoing hallways. He wrote, "I heard it last night. Laughter in the empty ballroom. I thought I saw someone, my brother, who died years ago, standing in the corner, smiling. I almost went to him, but I remembered your story. I turned on every light, called my wife, stayed on the phone until sunrise. The laughter faded. Thank you." That message stayed with me. It was proof that the story mattered, that hope could be stronger than fear. I shared it with the officer, who replied with a simple, "Keep going." So I did. I started holding live streams late at night, inviting anyone who was awake and afraid to join in. We told stories, shared fears, laughed together. Sometimes the laughter was shaky, uncertain, but it was real. It was ours. And every time we connected, every time we refused to be alone, the darkness seemed to pull back just a little. One night, during a stream, someone asked, "What do you think it really is? The thing behind the laughter?" I paused, thinking of all the faces, all the voices, all the stories. "I think it's loneliness," I said softly. "I think it's every fear we never say out loud, every night we spend thinking we're the only one awake. It feeds on silence, on secrets, on the belief that no one will remember our names. But every time we speak, every time we laugh together, we take a little of its power away." There was a long silence. Then someone typed, "I'm not afraid anymore." And just like that, the fear in the room lifted. For a moment, it felt like we'd won. But the story wasn't finished. Not yet. Some nights, the laughter would return, sharper and more desperate, as if the thing in the dark was fighting to survive. I'd wake up to find the recorder playing on its own, voices whispering my name. I'd see shadows moving in the corners of my vision, faces flickering in the glass. But I didn't run. I didn't hide. I spoke their names. I told their stories. I reminded them, and myself, that we were not alone. And the laughter, though it never vanished, grew weaker, fainter, less certain. If you're still listening, if you're still awake, I want you to remember this. Fear is a story, and so is hope. You get to choose which one you tell yourself when the night grows long. So keep your lights on, keep your voice strong, and if you ever hear laughter in the dark, if you ever feel a cold hand brush your skin, remember, you're part of this story now. You're part of the hope. Don't let go, not yet, because together, we're stronger than the darkness. Together, we can keep the laughter at bay, and together, we can finish this story. If you're still listening, let the sound of my voice be your anchor. Let it remind you that you're not drifting alone in the dark. Maybe you're lying on your back, eyes closed, the soft blue of your phone screen painting shadows on the ceiling. Maybe you're curled up, blanket pulled tight, letting the story settle into the quiet places of your mind. Wherever you are, however you feel, you're here, and that means you're stronger than you think. As the story spread, something changed in me. The fear didn't vanish, but it became familiar, a shadow I could recognize, a chill I could brace against. I learned to live with it, to let it sharpen my senses instead of dulling them, and I learned to recognize it in others too. People started reaching out in person. At the grocery store, a woman stopped me, her voice trembling. "I heard your story. I thought I was losing my mind. Thank you for making me feel less alone." At a coffee shop, a barista slipped a note into my hand, just a name and the words, "Please remember him." I added every name to the envelope. I spoke each one aloud, letting them echo in the room, letting them become part of the story. The more names I spoke, the lighter the envelope felt. The laughter still came, but it was softer now, more like a memory than a threat. The officer and I kept in touch, though our conversations grew shorter, more practical. She was busy, busier than ever, tracking new cases, supporting survivors, building a network of people who refused to be silent. She told me about a teacher who started a lunchtime club for students who felt alone, a bus driver who played cheerful music on late-night routes, a librarian who left notes of encouragement inside horror novels. The fight was spreading, just like the fear had, but this time it was hope that was contagious. One night, I received a package in the mail. No return address, just my name, written in careful block letters. Inside was a small, battered cassette tape and a note. For Sam, for all of us. I dug out an old tape player, heart pounding, and pressed play. At first, just static. Then, a voice, Sam's voice, clearer than I'd ever heard it. If you're listening, it means you didn't let go. Thank you. I don't know where I am, but I'm not afraid anymore. I hear laughter, but it's not alone. I hear other voices, yours and others. We're still here. We're still listening. Don't let go. The tape ended with a soft click. I sat there for a long time, letting the silence settle, feeling something inside me shift. I called the officer, played the tape for her over the phone. She was quiet for a while, then said, "Maybe that's all any of us need, to know that someone's listening, that our voices matter, that we're not forgotten." I thought about all the people who'd reached out, all the names in the envelope, all the laughter, both dark and bright, that had woven itself through my life. Maybe the thing in the dark wasn't just a monster. Maybe it was a reminder, a warning not to let fear turn us into ghosts, not to let silence erase us. The next night, during a live stream, I played Sam's tape. I let his voice fill the room, let his message ripple out into the world. People responded in real time, messages of hope, of gratitude, of remembrance. Some shared their own stories, some just listened, but in that moment, we were all connected, all part of something bigger than our fear. The laughter tried to creep in, tried to twist the edges of the night, but it couldn't drown us out. Not anymore. If you're still listening, if you're still awake, I want you to know your voice matters, your story matters. Every time you speak, every time you remember, you push back the darkness, so don't let go. Not yet, because the story is almost finished, and you're still here. You're still here, and that means the story is working. Maybe you feel it, a quiet strength building in your chest, a sense that the darkness outside your window isn't quite as thick as it was before. Maybe you're just tired, letting the words blur together, hoping they'll carry you gently into sleep. Either way, you're not alone. Even now, even here. After playing Sam's tape for everyone, the community grew. People who'd never spoken about their fears before started sharing. Some sent voice messages, some wrote long emails, some just left a single word, listening. It was enough. Each message was a thread, weaving us together into something the laughter couldn't unravel. The officer called me one evening, her voice softer, lighter than I'd ever heard. She told me about a night she'd spent at the station, listening to the stories coming in from all over the city. "It's like a wave," she said, a wave of voices pushing the darkness back. I can feel it, Jim. I can feel it working. I understood. I felt it too. The laughter still came, sometimes as I drifted off to sleep, sometimes in the hush before dawn, but it was different now. It sounded lonely, like it knew its time was running out. One night, I received a message from someone who'd never reached out before. It was short, just a few lines, but it hit me harder than anything else. I used to be afraid to sleep, afraid of the laughter. Now, when I hear it, I remember your story. I remember that I'm not alone. Thank you. I sat in the dark, reading those words over and over, letting them fill the quiet spaces in my heart. I realized then that the story wasn't just about fear. It was about survival, about connection, about hope. I started a new ritual. Every night before bed, I'd light a candle, speak the names from the envelope, and listen to Sam's tape. I'd let his voice and the voices of everyone who'd ever reached out fill the room. I'd let the warmth of their words settle over me, a shield against the cold. Sometimes I'd fall asleep with the recorder still running. In the morning, I'd play it back, listening for laughter, for whispers, for anything out of place. Most nights, all I heard was the gentle sound of my own breathing, the soft rustle of the candle flame. But one morning, as the sun crept through the blinds, I heard something new. Not laughter, not fear, a chorus of voices, dozens, maybe hundreds, speaking together, soft and sure. We're here, we're listening, we remember. I sat there, tears streaming down my face, overwhelmed by the beauty of it. The darkness hadn't vanished, but it had changed. It had become something we could hold, something we could face together. The officer and I met one last time, in a park, as the sun set behind the city skyline. We sat on a bench, watching the world turn gold and pink and blue. You did it, she said quietly. You gave people hope. I shook my head. We did it. All of us. Every voice, every story. She smiled, and for the first time, I saw no fear in her eyes. Only gratitude, only peace. As the sky darkened, I realized that the story was almost over, not because the fear was gone, but because we'd learned how to live with it, how to fight it, how to turn it into something beautiful. If you're still listening, if you're still awake, I want you to remember this. You are not your fear. You are not the laughter in the dark. You are every story you've ever told, every name you've ever remembered, every moment you've ever reached out for help. So don't let go. Not yet. Because even as the night deepens, even as the story winds toward its end, you are not alone, and you never will be.